Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is The Ugly Truth with Tommy Bottoms. With my homeboy Shelly Winter.
My man Shelly Winter, Herb Superb back there holding it down in Narnia land. Behind the boards, we got Jamal Ahmad on the show with us. Gonna have a great show. Great show.
Yeah.
How was the holiday?
My holiday was great, man. I was with the wifey and her family, and that was a great thing. I brought in the New Year for the first time in about 15 years. I brought in the New Year, not at church, but I was with my fiance's family's house, me, her mom, and her, because we let her little brother go out to a New Year's Eve party. So we spent it with her mom, and like it was so new to me because I'm either in church and headed to a party afterwards, you know. And this is the first year. I mean, we actually counted down to 10, 9, 8 with glasses of Dr. Pepper. You know what I mean? And I mean,
Why you hold your head down, Tommy?
I know. He held it
Well,
down like I said.
yeah.
He held his head down like I said. We brought it in shooting up heroin or something. But no. But the point I'm trying to make is that it was such a cultural, social change for me, and I enjoyed myself. Like I legitimately felt in my heart and had the feeling that this was one of, if not the best New Year's that I'd ever celebrated. Her mom was happy with her, you know what I mean? And it was just, it just felt good. And I never thought that would be a good New Year's. If someone told me, hey, you're going to bring in a New Year's at the house with a plastic bottle, a bottle of Dr. Pepper, I'm like, man, that must have been a slow year, you know what I mean? But I think it was a wonderful way. So
I was on the highway, and actually I wasn't doing anything really exciting. I was turning up a bottle of vodka in a car, just on the highway on 75 or 85 or 75.
My friend Tommy Bottoms.
Pile of cheap vodka at that.
It wasn't even top shelf?
Not even top shelf.
It's
Not
gonna
even
be a good
close.
year. It's gonna be a good year.
You know, if it ain't vodka, it ain't vodka.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
It's interesting because how did you? Well, you got some big news for the new year coming up. I mean,
Yeah, I got a shorty.
yeah.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
That's what's up. All right.
Coming.
Okay.
Things are gonna get more expensive.
There it is.
Blessing, no blessing.
That's what's happening. I saw Django.
Yes, what we want to talk about?
I saw Django over the holiday. In my opinion, excellent movie. Excellent. You saw it, Herb? And you know there was a lot of people. You seen it or saw it?
I did.
And what was your?
I thought it was brilliant. As
Brilliant.
a film, I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, I didn't understand. So and it was funny. Everybody that I saw or talked to who saw it said it was great. I didn't hear anybody. Or actually, Clips will be in here in a minute. He had a different opinion. He wasn't that impressed by it. But 99% of the people I talked to enjoyed it. The only people who seemed to have a problem with it were on the internet. All these black intelligentsia.
That's the point I was trying to make. Is that it's the point I was trying to make earlier. We have this system now where quote unquote white liberals have thrust these, like you said, intelligentsia artists, these writers, and they've picked and chose who are the voices.
Yeah.
The Griot has all these writers and stuff like that, and then now these people become the experts, but all their opinions kind of are high. I want to say too highfalutin for the normal people.
Well, not even that. It's just like I'm really the voice of dissension for just to be that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Because
Like,
I haven't heard anybody
Yeah.
really. Well, Jamal, we had something going on Facebook which prompted this, having you on.
right.
And by the way, tell people who you are first of all, because you look like a film critic. So tell me. For those of you who don't know who Jamal Ahmed is, let him tell you.
First of all, I didn't know there were going to be cameras, so you guys are totally killing the mystique. But I'm just a DJ. I'm a DJ who plays good music, and
Where at?
at Jazz 91.9 WCOK here in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
I do a show called The Soul of Jazz Monday through Fridays, 2 to 6 p.m., playing soulful music that has feeling, and emotion and depth. That's my main thing. Kind of like your show. You guys talk about things that matter.
Yeah, we're just two guys with opinions.
That's it. But so one of the things that I read was one of the criticisms that I read about the Django, the D is silent.
D is silent, hillbilly. Oh, you ain't seen it.
But one of the things that I read was that people were complaining, first of all, the use of the N-word with Quentin Tarantino. If you had a problem with that, you should have had a problem with that.
First of all,
for a long time ago.
You can't sit there and say 200 years later, this word has this much sting with it, and then talk about and then do a movie of that time period and not use it.
And not use it.
It's
right.
like it makes absolutely no sense.
Right.
Or how you gonna use the N-word? Or he doesn't have the right to use it.
Right.
It's a freaking movie.
Right.
Ah.
But that was one of the first criticisms. Was the use of the N-word in the movie, and you know, Quentin Tarantino, that word is used in all his films. I mean, that's a word Quentin Tarantino obviously feels comfortable writing in his scripts.
But you know why he does that? In my opinion, why he does that in his movies, what Quentin Tarantino does, I think what he does is he's trying to show the average person, this is how a lot of white people talk amongst themselves. You know what I'm saying? They don't say N-word, you know what I'm saying, when it's just them. And I think that's what, you know, if you notice his movies, they're kind of, I look at it, he's giving you a mirror in the culture. Yeah. In the mirror.
Right.
This is how when two white guys are talking amongst each other, this is how they're not saying that all white people talk like this, but there is this this idea that, you know, that white people walk around or they only say N-word or that's never used in my house. And maybe that's true. But there is that word has not gone anywhere. No more has it gone anywhere in black culture. It's not going anywhere in American culture. Yeah. We just use it in different formats or different arenas. You know, we might use it in the mall or amongst each other or in our music. White people might just, you know, keep it in the home or amongst. Black people talk. There's things that me and Shelly might say amongst each other that we might not say in a more mainstream audience. You know what I'm saying? And that's just the nature of what it is. And I think that's what Quentin Tarantino does. Is like, don't think just because Bob in accounting calls you a nigger. You know what I'm saying?
Right. When you're not around, you know, Bob's always calling you.
Yeah.
But one of the crazier.
Please believe it.
One of the crazier criticisms that I heard about this movie coming from African Americans was this kind of feeling that it was not, you know, it was kind of like I don't know, not true or not realistic.
Oh yeah, it wasn't historically correct.
It's a fantasy.
It's a fantasy,
right?
And that was not what his intentions of making this movie. It's black slavery porn. Is basically what it was. Just same way with Inglourious Basterds was Jewish porn. What if we could get a room full of Nazis in a room and burn and set the whole movie theater on fire?
It was a what if movie.
It's a what if movie.
Yeah, there's nothing. There's no, and this wasn't completely, you know, out of whack of the narrative of slavery. I mean, I mean, could you find a few little things here and there? Yeah.
And then not only that, but and one of the other criticisms that I heard was, well, the slavery scenes were just unnecessarily gory. Well, how do you, like you said earlier, how do you on one hand historically talk about a period of time in American history that's so destructive that it still carries ramifications for the people whose ancestors were part of it? You're right, 250
you're
years
four
later.
generations removed from it.
Right. And then say it was too gory or whatever. I just, like you said, it's a movie. I think it's, when I first read that they were making this movie, it was right after Inglourious Basterds came out. They had finished shooting Inglourious Basterds. It was set to come out in a couple months, and then they announced he's shooting this movie and yet untitled, and it's about this. And I said, man, that is a great idea for a film. You know what I mean? Just a guy that is a former slave who goes around killing slave masters. I mean, what's wrong with that?
We talk about Nat Turner.
Right.
That's kind of what Nat Turner.
Now, you were saying something about Spike Lee. You don't think Spike Lee really?
I think that Spike Lee is part of the marketing campaign.
Okay.
Honestly, that's just my opinion. I could be completely conspiracy theory with it, but I think he's part of the marketing campaign. Here's Spike. We're gonna give you a couple of points on the movie. Here's a little upfront money. Go out there and say
and dog it
and dog this movie because it's just gonna raise the profile of this movie.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? We need a huge black filmmaker who has a lot of street cred. You know what I'm saying?
A huge black filmmaker is almost like saying Andy Young is for something. Well, I'm obviously going to be against it because it's a new time. You know what I mean? Spike, you know, since Red Hook came out, you kind of can't really.
You can't Red Hook. I think nobody saw that.
Nobody.
You know what I'm saying? You saw it.
What'd you think of Red Hook?
No comment.
Yeah, I just when I saw the trailer for it, I was like, what the hell is this?
Why would I want to pay $8.50 to see this? This seems like a home video.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, you know, to me, movies like Django are the movies that I think African Americans filmmakers should be making.
Thank you.
That's what I was trying to say earlier.
He's a hero at the end. At the end, I shouldn't give it away, but
Right. He's a hero. He's a hero throughout, whether he dies or not.
But
He's a
the
hero
point
throughout.
is that, and that's the
What
thing
of this
about.
character? What did you think of the Sam Jackson?
Wait, let me before I get to him. The blaxploitation movies of the '70s, if you really pay attention to them, they were, regardless if they were drug dealers or pimps, there was always a social consciousness behind what they were doing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It was, they were always trying to fight the man,
Right.
so to speak, and they always won. They didn't die in the end.
Right.
They're never one moment away from greatness and get
Murdered.
shot down in the street.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's what I loved about those movies. It was a optimism to it. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I
Wait,
think.
the optimism being if I go around and shoot up a bunch of.
Well, I mean, the idea that it's just the hero. I'm a hero, and I don't. The idea.
Y'all killing the movie for those who haven't seen the movie yet.
Yeah.
Y'all kill it.
Man, nah, but right here, he needs to get
Roy says, "Is this a movie about Catcher Freeman?"
Catcher Free. He hasn't seen it.
I don't know. Is this a movie? They will
actually,
get.
his last
they
name
will
is
get.
Freeman.
Oh, they will get the man movies.
Yeah.
Well, the Catcher Freeman reference is a reference to Boondocks.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
And,
that's
and
what
you
it
look
is.
at Samuel Jackson's character.
He's
he
like
really
Uncle
is like
Ruckus.
Uncle Ruckus.
Ruckus, right.
And then I guess that plays into
And his
Aaron
last name-
Magruder's.
Django's last name is Freeman.
Okay, go ahead. Go. What are you saying?
But Aaron Magruder was one of the producers of this film.
Oh,
along
really?
with
I didn't know
Reginald
that.
Hudlin.
Yeah, I know Hudlin
he
was.
wrote-
I didn't know Magruder was.
And I guess that was my problem when everyone was talking about the N-word. I said, have you guys seen the
Boondocks.
Right, right. And do you know that
And
these
the
guys?
same people who criticize that love the Boondocks.
Right. Well, Sharpton had tried to criticize the Boondocks when he first came
No
out.
credibility.
But like you said, no credibility when it comes to those kinds of things.
Yeah.
I mean, great thing about Django is that box office is breaking records for a Quentin Tarantino film, which his movies do hundreds of millions worldwide already. So, but
He plays a brilliant. I see you laughing, and I know why you're laughing.
What they need to do is do a real live version
Oh
of Boondocks.
man,
But he was the real like.
That was
Uncle
real-
Ruckus.
that was it.
He
That
was it, but they need to do a movie that
Yeah.
way, though.
Oh,
Do a
man.
overtime movie
I agree.
that
with
movie
his
was.
character, him in there.
That would be
before,
brilliant.
Before
Well,
he
in
became,
fact, I want to talk about this. If
Go ahead.
people haven't seen this movie, and this is for the people, if you haven't seen it and you don't want the spoiler alert, this is a spoiler alert. We're going to talk about the movie real quick. So go ahead and tune out for a few minutes. You know what I'm saying?
they may never come back. They may never come
Well,
back.
I'm just saying. I'm going to talk about this movie. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to wait to see it, and you don't want to hear this next couple of minutes, then wait. Go get a cup of coffee or something, come right back, or just turn the volume down for a second. Uncle Ruckus, or excuse me, Sam Jackson's character in this, and this is why the movie has so many layers. He's kind of the Uncle Tom house nigga role. Plays it brilliantly, and to the point where it's funny as hell. You know what I'm saying? But there's a scene where he takes Leonardo DiCaprio's character, who is the slave master, takes him into a room, and he's basically trying to let him know that Django and this German guy are trying to run game on him.
Right.
And, so basically, Sam Jackson's character is real Uncle Tomish, real I hate you niggas, and all of this. He gets Leonardo DiCaprio's slave master, his character in the library. They're in the room by themselves. When Leonardo DiCaprio walks into the room, Sam Jackson's character is sipping a glass of cognac, chilling. Because in this room, they're equals. He's a business partner.
Exactly.
They're talking amongst each other. This coon role he plays is for society. I can't go out here in society and act like we're friends and act as if we're equals.
I can't let them know
I
you
can't
running this house or running this property.
I
or running
run
these
this
slaves.
thing.
Exactly.
Right,
I
right.
own
I
this.
have to.
My family owns this.
Exactly. So when I go out here, you play your role, Sam Jackson, and Leno, and as the house nigga,
right.
and as I am the slave master, and we have certain roles we play in society. But in this room,
Right, we're
your
equals.
your value, your input is very valuable.
Right.
Only to the point where I walked in and poured myself a glass of cognac,
Right.
and I'm in here comfortable, and I'm talking to you like two CEOs or two business partners about, you're getting ready to put up some money, and this is a bad business deal, and we're talking like this. and that says volumes
Of
about
the
depth of what slavery. See, people kind of look at slavery. There's a lot of ways people survive through slavery. Being a house nigga was just one. If people know the real story of the Uncle Tom and Uncle Tom's Cabin, he was a hero in the book.
He was.
You know what I'm saying? The role the subservient Negro is what you do is a survival tactic.
Right.
You know what
well,
I'm
that's
saying?
what I mean. That's what the you know, for anybody that believes otherwise, Uncle Tom's Cabin kind of tells
Exactly.
you that was the role. It was a survival mechanism. It wasn't a I hate my people mechanism. It was a survival mode mechanism,
yeah.
and this is what I choose to do. Same with passing. You know, people who passed in the early 40s and 30s. You know, it wasn't a reason. It wasn't your. You know, it's easy for someone to look back and say, "Well, you hated
This is
yourself."
what I did. This is
No,
what I would have
I had
did.
to survive. I had to live. I was light skinned. I had a white mother and a black father, and I had straight hair and very light skin, and people accepted me as white. Well, in a society where that means a
something.
lot,
Why wouldn't I?
Why wouldn't I?
And
You know?
I think people too, when they look at slavery, they discuss it in terms from, they try to look at it from contemporary 2012,
Right.
2013, and say, well, if I was, no, you would have did exactly what they were
did.
doing.
Right.
then.
Exactly.
You wouldn't have did anything
because you don't do
You know what I'm
anything.
saying?
You don't even do anything today to help yourself.
No, yeah,
so
you'd have-
know.
if I would have admitted, I'd have been running around. I
Right.
told man something, man, you know.
Right,
hey,
right,
no,
right,
wait, no,
right.
you got to understand, slavery lasted for 200 years.
Right.
So this idea that you thought, you know, it's like running into a McDonald's and telling somebody at McDonald's, you're free, leave. Because they're like, what are you talking about?
Right.
It's the same thing as a slave. What are you talking about? This is what I do. How do you convince somebody, this is what my grandparents did, my mother did. I'm raised into this. I don't necessarily see anything different.
Right.
You know,
And it ain't that bad because I don't know what really bad is.
I don't know what bad is.
Right.
If it's just like with Harriet Tubman's quote, I freed thousands of slaves and I would have freed thousands of more had they known they were slaves.
Right.
You know, this idea, you can't, and there's another part, right? When in this movie where it's actually several parts. And the end of the movie, if you remember, when Jamie Foxx's his character Django was captured, he tricks the slave master, these couple of guys who captured him or were taking him to another plantation. He kills them. Now there's these three other slaves that are in a cage. That cage is open. All the other guys there are dead.
And they sat there.
They sat there in that cage. They didn't take off running.
Damn sure. And they didn't
Run
say
to
nothing.
what?
They didn't say
What
nothing
am
to
I
each
running to?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? This idea like, okay, now I'm free. But what am I running to? You know what I'm saying? It's like, so it's still the conditioning of, I'm still sitting in this cage. They had the doors open. The people who had the guns on me are dead, but I don't move.
And a lot of critics had a problem with that.
Yeah.
A lot of critics had a problem
That's
with
the
that
reality.
piece.
That's
But
more
see-
realistic than the idea of them running.
Right, but here's the thing, though. This is why I joined this conversation on Facebook. Liberal whites and liberal blacks, and I don't mean that, I just generalizing, but liberal whites and especially liberal African Americans would have a problem with that scene because that scene speaks to a subconsciousness of them that knows they haven't run yet. The cage has been open. Now, the liberal whites obviously not run, but for liberal blacks, they haven't done anything.
Right.
The cage has been open for their lifetimes, and they're still in that cage. And they know subconsciously the reason why they have a problem with that scene is because they haven't run yet. And like you said, you can understand because even today, look at our political situation. I hate to slide here because I know a lot of people gonna be like, how did you meld these two issues together? But the Democratic Party, it's the same thing. Here is a group of people who have done nothing for you, yet you're still in that cage with the door wide open to vote for whoever you want to or not vote at all, yet you still cast your vote for people that have not done anything for you. And it's the same thing. The cage is open, but you're not running. So that's why many people had an issue with that on not on Facebook, on the email, because subconsciously they
That's way more realistic than somebody, because
Right.
you got to understand. Like, people think, like, when slavery was over, when the Emancipation Proclamation came down and the 13th Amendment, most slaves never left the plantation.
Hold on, let me.
Because it's like, what are you leaving? It's not like you left, you had a condo in New York somewhere. Like, I've been waiting all this time to go spend my summer in New York. No. This is where my house has been. I've been raised here. My grandmother was here.
Oh,
My father was here.
One of the most important parts. They had no wealth. They had no income.
Where am
They
I
had
going
nothing.
to?
Right. Roy says that is too. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Herb. Roy said on a chat room, and by the way, ladies and gentlemen, tune in. You can get in the chat room. Just sign up, and this is how we talk instead of having call-ins, which we're gonna work on. I'm trying to do that. We could do it now. Yeah, we could do it now, but we don't
go
want
ahead.
it. But Roy said that is too broad a brush saying liberal blacks are house Negroes. I didn't say that. First of all, I made no mention of house Negro. What I was saying was the analogy that Tommy was saying about being in a cage, the door being opened and no one running. And I'm saying that in 2012, there are many of us who are not running.
So would you say that that's guilt?
I think it's guilt.
On the
It's
part of
guilt,
the
and
critics?
it's that subconscious feeling like, when you're having a discussion with your loved one and they say something that touches home, you get defensive. That's that liberal, angst on the African American, especially that black intelligentsia who has not run anywhere. You've accepted jobs into this former the man's corporations. You're still mad. You know what I mean? Newsweek did a fascinating article years ago called "The Anger in the Black Elite." And what it was talking about was how African Americans were moving up in corporate America, but they were angry still because there were still issues of racism and stuff like that. It's the same thing. You're accepting of these issues and these conditions for you to a less extent, but to a larger extent, your people, and yet you're still in a cage. You're not doing anything about it. You complain. You say no justice, no peace. But you know what? I got a good house. I got a nice car.
What
My
are you?
kids get
What are you possibly angry about?
your anger, so when you saw the slaves in a cage not running, enslaved people in a cage not running, you got mad at that because subconsciously,
And that's
you
again,
know
you're
you
trying
haven't
to take
run.
a contemporary mindset and try to place it in the 17th century, 18th century of America.
Right.
It's just not. It's just
Momo 3000 said they didn't leave because they knew they'd be tortured, amputated, and killed.
well. I mean, and that's part of it too. Like, what am I running to?
Right.
It's like, what am I? If I run away, I might. Let's assume that I don't get picked up by slave with the people who rounded up runaway slaves. Let's suppose that doesn't happen, but where am I going to? I'm still a certain position in the society. It's like I said, it's not like I got a condo that I've been waiting to go to, or there's this great job I've been waiting to take over at at H&H Block.
Because they don't even know what direction to go.
Yeah.
Where am I? Exactly.
Roy is falling into the pattern that you discussed, Tommy, of this viewpoint of the world back then in these eyes now. He says field Negroes went out to get their 40 acres. They knew what to do. They needed tools. House Negroes didn't leave because they had it good. I mean,
It's not accurate.
it's not accurate, and it's an oversimplification. Go ahead, Jamal.
Well, to add on to the guilt thing as well. If you look at say black institutions like colleges. First of all, when you deal with slavery and to add on to that point of the 40 acres and the mute, we needed something like the Freedmen's Bureau to really assist us in all that.
Right.
That's really what opened the door for a lot of African Americans. Let's really look at what happened historically.
Exactly.
That's number
Exactly.
one. But I think when you also look at the whole cage thing, when you look at I went to Morehouse, and you look at that whole AUC system.
Right.
now,
Now be
that's
careful because it's recorded. So you.
No.
Okay.
I'm not. Morehouse till I die, I love it. That's why I'm not.
No, I'm saying the whole AUC, with 91.9, just
Yeah.
don't want to get you in trouble.
Well, no. Well, but here's the main thing that we have to look at. Like, if you look at the turn of the century, you had this whole, like you were talking about, the passing culture, and the liberal blacks at most of these colleges were the ones holding back the students, saying, "Don't march for this, don't march for that," because you don't want to mess up your opportunities.
Right.
And I think that plays into what you were talking about, not leaving that cage.
Right.
And when you look at the person at the AUC, some of the people at the AUC who were really about it were people like Howard Zinn, a Jewish white guy,
Right.
who really opened it up and helped the SNCC kids.
Howard Zinn, the author, worked at AUC.
He worked at Spelman. He was fired by, this is an interesting story. Howard Zinn worked at Spelman in the 1950s and 60s. He was a mentor to Alice Walker and that whole crew and the SNCC crew.
Okay.
And the administration at Spelman fired him because he was getting the students all riled up.
Right.
But that was that no, don't leave the cage mentality.
Right, right.
You know,
wow, that's fascinating. I never knew how, because for those of you who don't know, Howard Zinn wrote the great book, The Untold History.
the big
Untold
American, American
The Untold History of America. Or am I mixing that title up with Oliver Stone's great?
He's got some documentary out now.
And so,
Yeah.
That's the one you're talking about.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Untold History. But Howard Zinn wrote
People's History.
People's
of
History.
the United
That's it.
States.
Thank you.
Yes.
Was Howard Zinn a communist?
Yeah, but hey man, I know he had some things in Nam, and he sat down with Ho Chi Minh and all those guys, but I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
All right.
Well, it's like John Brown. You know, John Brown idea was to start these revolutions throughout the slave throughout the South, these plantations, and idea was to, was only a few of us right now. By the time we get to the last plantation, there'll be a bunch of us because hopefully all these slaves would rise up throughout these through all these uprisings. But that's not what happened.
Right. That's not what
You know what I'm saying? Because because you got to understand, what am I uprising against? I eat every day. People like when you're minimum wage, people accept minimum wage. If you work for minimum wage in 2012, you're a slave. That's point blank. If you work at Walmart at a cashier and you're putting up boxes, that's slavery.
They're called wage slaves.
If this was 1700, who do you think would be doing those jobs? You know what I'm saying? You get just enough to eat.
Right.
You get just enough to put a roof over your head, and just enough food to give you the energy to get up and go ahead and do it again the next day.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's what it is. That's slavery. And that's
some-
what you got during slavery.
Right.
This
And that-
idea that they didn't get paid. See, that's what we get. They didn't. You're getting money. No, slaves got paid. You know what I'm saying?
They
They
got paid
didn't.
in housing, food, and so forth.
Which is what we're getting.
It's
paid
what you
in.
just
Exactly.
you get just enough
And
to
Tommy has
survive.
made this point before a
great
lot of
point.
times. Tommy has made this interesting point before where he says if you went to 90% of workers right now and said, we'll give you your house, we'll give you food, and we'll give you transportation, all you have to do is come to work.
We won't give you a paycheck.
Right.
You don't get a
You
paycheck
don't get
anymore.
paid.
Like China.
Yeah,
Right. You just
Exactly.
get everything. Most people would do that, and most people would. When I had started working with a security firm, and I work at the airport. And so when I worked different shifts, and I've worked at 7-Eleven, and it's 3 to 11, all this stuff. But it's interesting because all the shifts are the same. And the airport is one of the largest employers in Atlanta. And so you get on the train at the airport, and it's hundreds of people getting off of work at the same time because it's all the shifts are the same no matter where you work. And you look around and you sit there and you observe. And many of the people that are sitting there, I always think of Tommy when I see this, is many people that you see sitting there would absolutely sign up for that deal. I won't take a paycheck, but you're giving me a house, food, and I get to and from work every day, and you pay all my bills.
And some little bit of health care.
And some health care that'll get, if I get
Anything extra, you got to come up on your own.
Oh, right.
No, and that's what slave.
And that's what you're doing now.
Yeah,
That's what you're doing now.
Essentially.
And that's people they mix up the social institution of slavery and the economic institution.
Absolutely.
You can't capitalism. It's the economic institution of slavery you cannot get rid of.
Right.
The social institution of it, which is basically what the 13th Amendment did, it got rid of the social institution of slavery.
Right.
All you guys can be slaves now.
Right.
It don't matter what color you are.
Yeah.
Hispanic,
Well, really, but basically what slavery went to was from slavery to sharecropping.
Right.
And most of the or a lot of the sharecroppers in the South were poor white folks
And in debt,
and in debt.
which we are now.
Yeah.
We're all in
And
debt.
if you look at if you watch Django, they point that out. The rich elite white folks didn't care any more about these poor stakes. So the poor white people as savages. You know what I'm saying? They were no more. In fact, there's a scene right where because Django is a free. Again, if you haven't seen this, tune out for a second. Django is a free man, and they go to this plantation and they have to explain to this guy, hey, he's a free man, and you can't treat him like a slave. So the slave master is telling one of the black slave girls to show Django around the plantation. And she says, but don't treat him like a slave. Well, the black girl has no concept of that.
Right.
She's like, well, I don't know what that means. So she says, do I treat him like a white man? So the white man said, no, you don't do that. Don't treat him like a white man. And he said, well, let me think here. And he says, what's the name of that old Peckerwood from such and such, such and such? And basically, Peckerwood is a derogatory term for poor white trash.
Right.
And he said, treat him like that. You know what I'm saying? Don't treat him like a white man. Don't treat him like a slave, but you can treat him like poor white trash.
Right.
Because that's just a step up above
right.
being a
And
slave.
it's all about that classism,
hierarchy.
that hierarchy of classism. That humankind
Yeah.
has always instituted to, one, keep control, but also if you're at the top, that's what you need to do.
And you need
There's
to keep-
always got to be people underneath you.
And you keep poor white people from revolting against rich white folks as long as I'm not a nigga.
Right. As long as there's
There's
someone
some below me.
Right.
They used to call those people plebes in ancient Rome.
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Hold on,
Yep.
Roy in the chat room says, talking about going back to what you were saying before about the Walmart, talking about one big difference: you can leave Walmart and the projects.
But then
leave
Doug,
slavery.
Doug Berry says, Roy, you could leave the projects and you could have left slavery.
Exactly.
That's what the whole conversation started with in this movie.
And Roy says you can advance yourself then and now, but you
Because the social institution of slavery is gone.
You still could
so
be
you
first
can
class.
still you
Right,
can
that's what we
move
just-
up.
yeah. But
But
Roy-
the economic institution, we still need the people to do these bullshit jobs.
Right.
Somebody needs to. Somebody
And you're
needs to
still
be
not first class, Roy.
Yeah.
The point that Tommy's trying to make, if I can,
Go ahead.
and Jamal is trying to make, is that either way, you're not ever moving up enough to be first class. Yeah, a couple people are Oprahs and stuff like that, but that's not the masses of any group of people. Hispanic, white, the masses of white people ain't. They keep talking about taxing the rich. There's 0.5%. They said it's like 200,000 people make all this money. So not even the masses of white people are first class. So
Exactly.
it's not, it's not designed and never was designed.
Capitalism
in any-
is a pyramid.
It is a pyramid. It's one of the best pyramid schemes ever.
If you're going to have a few up here and a whole lot down here,
exactly.
and that's black and white.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's it has to be that way because if you made a lot of money, like I'm working for the security company, if all of us made good money or was rich, then there'll be nobody to be security guards.
Somebody has. If
Somebody
everybody
has to
can't
do
be a
it.
CEO,
Right.
somebody got to clean the toilets.
Right.
And we got Roy in the chat on the phone or whatever.
All right.
All right, Roy.
Hey, how you doing? Happy New Year, first of all, fellas.
Happy New Year.
Yeah. What up?
One big difference. You can talk about capitalism as a pyramid, and you're right. You got to have folks on the bottom. But guess what? During slavery, look at the color of your skin. You was on the bottom.
Yes.
And you still are to a certain
Well, I mean,
extent.
No, that's not true at all.
No,
if you advance yourself, you could start your own. If you can't make it at IBM, you could be the next IBM if you so choose. Back then, you couldn't be the next IBM.
And that's what we're talking about. You're arguing against a point we're not arguing.
There's a huge difference between
You're making up an argument.
We're not arguing that. That's exactly what we're saying. I said the point. You can't get rid of the economic institution of slavery. What they did get rid of was the social institution of slavery, saying that these people, by their color of skin, are second-class citizens. That's what the 13th Amendment did. That's what the Emancipation Proclamation essentially said, is we're no longer going to acknowledge this caste system of a certain class of or a certain group of people being second-class citizens just by the color of the skin they were born with. That's what you got rid of. But when you end slavery, the cotton fields still need to be picked.
Right.
You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that nobody's gonna pick the cotton no more, because you know what? If I'm a slave, say it again.
They were looking at you to pick those cotton fields back then.
And they were looking, and those same slaves were looking to pick that cotton.
Right. That's the point.
And that's the point I'm making.
Roy, you're arguing against a point we're not making.
We must be. Yeah, I was gonna say we must be missing something then, because it sounds like you're saying that they're looking at you to pick those cotton fields today, as they were looking at you to pick those
Yes,
cotton
if you
fields
work at
back then.
McDonald's,
You're
just a
picking
cotton
cotton.
field.
Yeah.
But see,
If
that's-
you work at Walmart as a cashier, you're picking cotton.
Right.
Well, see, okay, my point is, right now they're looking at whoever's going to go for $1 an hour. See, they don't
Exactly.
Black, white, blue.
That's what the Emancipation Proclamation, the 13th Amendment said.
Go ahead, Roy.
So I'm just saying, back then they were looking for a black person. They weren't looking for
Exactly.
whoever was the lowest. If they could get an Indian or whatever, they weren't looking for an Indian. They were looking for a black man.
Exactly. The
That's what
social
they were-
institution of
So now
slavery. That's the.
it's more an aristocracy. It's more, okay, if I can pay someone zero, I'll pay them zero. I don't care what color they are.
Exactly.
Plus,
That's
we
what
can
you have
advance
today.
ourselves.
I don't care if it's a Mexican or somebody from Singapore or if it's a poor white trash or
right.
black.
Back then,
Anybody who will work
different.
for $8 an
But
hour can get it.
Roy,
Okay.
again, we had already said that. You took away the social and just kept the economic. That we've already said everything that you said. We're not
Okay,
arguing with you.
all right.
In other words.
Okay.
We actually agree.
Yeah. We agree with you. And Momo 3000, thanks for your call, Roy.
All right.
Momo 3000 says, let's stop calling enslaved African slaves. And I agree with him. We weren't slaves, we were enslaved.
Exactly.
You know, Momo, you're right. And
Make sure you explain the difference.
well, the difference is that a slave is if someone who is I can't
Enslaved meaning
really explain it, but I know what it means. But I
Enslaved basically means that it's a forcible position.
Right.
You were forced in that position.
as opposed to a
Being
slave.
a slave is a person that accepts that.
Right.
But we did have a lot of slaves.
Right. Yeah, but I understand his point.
But I understand.
Though.
I totally understand. his point.
yeah.
Go ahead. Let's. First of all, go ahead, Jamal.
Okay, I just wanted to play devil's advocate real quick because the one thing I guess the one beef that I did have with this movie, and I think it was because I saw Melvin Van Peebles' documentary Classified X.
Okay.
And if no one's ever seen that documentary, I advise everyone to go on YouTube and take a look at Melvin Van Peebles'
I'm gonna check that
Classified
out
X
today.
because what he talks about, and it's really brilliant, what he talks about is the role that African Americans played in Hollywood. And he talks about those small nuances that no one really paid attention to. And one nuance that he really talked about that really stuck out with me was in a lot of these movies, you always had, if there was a black character that wins, you always had that kind of white, empathetic protagonist
Right.
that always helped. And
Helped
it was,
him.
Yeah.
It was always there.
Yeah, right.
And
That
so,
you couldn't do it on your own.
because you never could do it
Do it
on your own. And
right.
so I think my only beef with this movie was
The German-
the German was that. And of course, people can say, well, the story wouldn't have flowed right if he didn't come and do what he did.
Right.
But you look at so many, Africans that did the uprising, like Denmark VC and all these cats, they did on their own.
Well, I
Right.
think there's two points to that. One,
It's a great point, Jamal.
it is a good, and I think one of those, because they made that same point about blood. Was it Blood Diamonds? You get a room, continent full of Africans, but you still have to have Leonardo DiCaprio here.
The one young,
yeah.
120
But-
pounds wet white dude.
Yeah. but I think
Last King of Scotland.
Yeah,
Another
last game.
example.
But I think that's Hollywood economics plays a big part of that. And for the we can argue that whether white people will go see a movie without a leading white character. Who knows?
Who knows?
You know what I'm
But I
saying?
think
Hollywood but you can't discount that that's not part of the history too, though. That's the other side of it.
Right.
There is.
You couldn't have ever freed any group of people in
yeah,
any country
yeah.
without the acceptance of
Just like
at
we were
least
talking-
half of the white people.
Well, just like we were talking about the Jewish guy at Spelman. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Who was John Brown. Throughout history, there have been these.
Well, when you're talking about white-black relations,
yeah. So it's not completely. I think that when you're talking about making a Hollywood movie, can you make one where there's not one? Yeah, but will it do $100 million at the box office? Is what it comes down to.
And
the
then
question.
also, I don't think white people, when they watch these movies, really see it as being anything else but the movie. You understand what I'm saying? It's
Right.
in their minds, the movie is what
Well,
it is.
yeah. Well,
And I think like.
that goes into white privilege, though. That goes. The fact that they
no.
don't
Look at the
see it
Civil. Look at the Civil War. I mean, if all the white people were not in some way heroes to African Americans and their plight, then the Civil War would have lasted all of one day. They'd have been like, "Oh heck no, we're not fighting."
a lot of the Union people didn't agree.
No,
with
I didn't say all did,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying there were some who said, "No, this is wrong. Slavery is an institution. Is wrong. We're going to fight."
No, they fought because they were told to fight, like most professional soldiers are.
Well, there
done
weren't
in
any.
America.
Wow, snap.
I don't think so, like 20 times. I've been sitting
Oh, that was you. Oh, sorry. But no, I want to get in an argument with that.
Go ahead.
Hudlin was a producer. I'm asking, would any other all black team, any other all black team, been able to secure a budget for a film like Django? I think if you've got Quentin Tarantino behind it, yeah.
Well, and that goes into the point of Hollywood economics.
Right.
I mean, and that at the end of the day, people want to see a return on their money. And do I want to put together several tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars or whatever to put together a movie that I might not to take a chance on let's just do an experiment and see if we don't have any black characters in it. I mean, any white characters in it. What what
But
people
you have to
go out
have
and see
white characters in a movie about slavery.
Well, yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
So Sketcher X says, but Django was a special case because the white hero dies before the end, and Django was able to finish the job on his own.
The hero. And that's the point. That's what I loved about it. And I think we got to get back to, when we talk about black filmmakers, we got to get back to that spirit of the blacks, the 70s black exploitation movies.
Which I hate that term, because that was
Well,
a term the
yeah,
NAACP
yeah.
when you talk about not getting out the cage.
Yeah.
Roy had asked earlier in the chat room, why does that necessarily have to be liberal?
Yeah.
And I use the term liberal not in the general sense, just to describe a group of people, because NAACP were largely, like you said, the people at the AUC, largely these liberal African Americans who thought they knew everything. And the term black exploitation came from that NAACP
negative term.
chapter in L.A. because these movies were coming out and they saw them as negative movies. And so I remember I had Richard Roundtree on when I was on 1380, and we talked about it. He said the worst thing about that time was you had thousands of African Americans working.
You mean the best thing?
No, it's the worst thing.
Oh, okay.
Because when they stopped the movies, that
I got
protest
you. Yeah,
came from
yeah.
the NAACP, the Urban League, these civil rights groups. And they didn't protest them to say, change the topics or let us make some films. They protested to the point where get rid of them. And so
It
Richard
didn't replace
Roundtree,
them with anything.
and then replace them with anything. And then so what you did was you got rid of cameramen, all these jobs, grips. These are real jobs. People do carpentry, photographer. These are all African Americans doing these jobs. And like you said, these films, for a larger audience of the 70s that wasn't ready to see black criminals shoot down black cops, so you had to spin it in a different way. These movies told, if you can see them for what they were, told great stories.
They were always about us against the man.
Right. And the man was somehow manipulating the other people at the other levels.
Well, there was one in particular that I remember, The Spook Who Sat by the Door.
A great
Stabbed by
movie.
the Door.
My
Yeah,
favorite
great
movie of all
movie.
time.
But why was that one out of all the black exploitation films? And that's a great point you just raised, Shirley. The black exploitation, that term is almost like the N word.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Because
yeah,
they weren't
yeah.
they weren't black exploitation. They were
Yeah.
That's a great point. But why was that movie banned? Why was that movie banned
Dangerous.
in America as opposed to all those other films?
All those other.
What was it
Why
about
wasn't Superfly banned when you're moving massive amounts of cocaine, making it look cool? You know what I'm saying? But this movie, for those of you who have not seen it, I urge you.
Gotta
This,
see
this
it.
is my first of all, read the book by Sam Greenlee.
great guy.
Great,
Great dude.
I know you interviewed him, right? But The Spook Who Sat by the Door is probably my favorite movie of all time. And there's another one that came out right at the same time, and I can't remember. It's about advertising, and and I love it because I'm in advertising. But it was about a advertising company with all white guys, and they have this one black guy as a creative director, and the owner dies, and so they have a vote. And it's all these white guys around the table, but all the white guys would not vote. You couldn't vote for yourself. So nobody wanted to vote for you because I want to be the president. So everyone voted for the black guy, thinking in their mind, ain't nobody gonna vote for the nigga. You know what I mean? So what happened was the black guy wins the presidency of the ad agency, and he starts making all these ads and he's like, really politically, anyway, as opposed to the ads that had grinning and cheating and stuff like that. I can't remember the name, but. Godfrey Cambridge, Roy, you're absolutely right. He was a young Godfrey Cambridge. But the point is, Spook Who Sat by the Door, I've always thought if I can ever get to pen and paper to write Spook 2. And the reason being is because at the end of that movie, he has a baby. At the end, he's in his room, and he's making love to the sister, and you hear the FBI kicking the door, and the bomb's blowing up right there, and then it ends. But you hear a baby crying. It's almost like Sam Greenlee wanted to let you know I'm coming out with a Spook too. It's a fascinating movie, and it really is. It spoke to where we were at that time.
Yeah.
Affirmative action was letting in massive amounts of African Americans. A lot of them were falling through the cracks. A lot of people did not care. They thought, I got this job because I'm black.
Sketcher X in the chat room says they need to reboot The Spook. Would that make money?
Yeah. Django right now is close to 100 million from Wednesday to now, and I think it would make money. I think that if you would have asked me, would a revisionist what if slave movie came out, would it make money? Of course it would. If Medea can make money, these movies can make money. Now, people don't have to necessarily understand. No, seriously, think about it.
it's real.
People don't have to necessarily understand the political ramifications of the cage being open and no one running, or some of the other things that you guys talked about. But as a film, hell yeah, I can go see a bunch of blood and gore.
I think that those, I think you put those things in there. I mean, that's probably a whole separate point, but I love those little nuances.
Well, that's what makes a good film.
Yeah.
Would you agree, Jamal?
No, totally,
yeah,
totally.
yeah.
But I think that's the thing that some people don't understand about Tarantino. And I think before you even go see Django, you have to understand Tarantino.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
because
Explain that.
because we're still dealing with art here. I think sometimes like we like African Americans will talk about music and we'll say, that sucks and that sucks, and I'm like, let's talk about the music first.
Yeah.
Let's not talk about the content, because you have to always look at it for a piece of art. And when you're dealing with cinema has a history.
Right.
There's a long history, and Spike Lee even acknowledges the greatness of great white directors and even some of the great black directors in the past. But Tarantino is part of that lineage.
Right.
And really what Tarantino does is, all Tarantino is doing is like a mixtape. Tarantino is like sampling movies, and because in that film, one thing that a lot of people didn't pick up on
In
was
Django,
that,
you're talking about.
Django was that it was arranged by Ennio Morricone, and Ennio Morricone is an Italian.
Western. He made the
he
spaghetti
did
westerns.
all the spaghetti
And he-
westerns.
and he did the score.
Matter of fact, if you go and listen to one of them, Africa Bambaataa and the Soul Sonic Force lifted a little piece in Planet Rock. But a lot of people don't pay attention to those nuances in films, the soundtracks and all that.
I'm glad you said it, because there's a scene where when
Rick
Django, with the Rick Ross, that was cold. That was so cold. That Rick Ross come in, and then when he gets into the shootout, at the end, Tupac starts coming in.
The two rappers, Rick Ross and Tupac.
Oh, that
are
was
in
so
Django.
cold. That was cold.
What
when
does
he had
that mean? What does that mean?
The Pac. The Pac thing was completely. I was trying to figure the Rick Ross was just like, to me, it was just like the field nigga. Like that particular song, that particular scene was just like.
Ross was
Well, the music is just. I don't know. It was just
Song produced by Jamie Foxx also.
that particular
100
song.
Coffins, 100.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
That was a Jamie Foxx song, I think.
Okay, see,
featuring Rick
yeah,
Ross.
okay. And then you had the Tupac joint. Tupac was the epitome of anti-establishment.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? And that's what he's doing. He's in the shootout with the establishment, of the establishment of that time. And it's just when I heard that pop come on, I was like, woohoo! It was just Tarantino's a beast. I love Tarantino.
I do. I've never liked a Tarantino
I love
film.
Tarantino.
Yeah,
man.
they're brilliant. They're brilliant films.
Films, exactly.
yeah.
Film. And that's what I think. That's largely what a lot of our criticisms of a Spike Lee and notwithstanding your comment about him part of being in marketing, which is totally.
Which I never understood. See, Spike Lee is a filmmaker in an artistic sense, in the same way. Like, I just don't make movies to make money. You know what I'm saying? Tarantino's the same way. I make films.
Right.
And whether they make money or not, I mean, of course I want to turn a profit. I want to make a paycheck, but I make films.
Right.
And so I always never understood Spike Lee being critical of Tarantino in his artistic direction, or how he decides to be creative.
But I interviewed Spike Lee this past summer when he had Red Hook Summer, and one thing, and I love Spike Lee, but one thing I noticed about Spike Lee is a natural contrarian, meaning he always has to say,
exactly.
And I think when you look at the black intelligentsia, you have really a whole host of cats who are just contrarian.
Exactly.
Who just always want to. You can say the sky's blue, and they say no.
Well, not
it's kinda
technically.
purple, actually. They
Yeah.
always want to do that.
yeah,
I think Spike Lee is one of those guys because Spike. I think if he went and saw the film, he'll acknowledge
How do you criticize a film you haven't seen?
I think Spike Lee is still angry about The Last Miracle of Santa Anna, because I went and saw that film. And what he tried to do was something brilliant, actually, which is give a black perspective on World War II, which is one of the biggest wars, one of the biggest events in world history.
Right.
So he did that, and it went kind of unnoticed, even though it was actually a really good
I haven't
film.
seen it, but I've heard a lot.
Let me tell you. I tell you the truth about and I don't know if this speaks to something I have subconsciously with Spike Lee films or what, because I honestly have not liked a Spike Lee film since X, and that was I knew everything was going to happen in that film, so I didn't really ever view it as I really liked. I thought Denzel did a more a job that made me like the film than the direction and all that, because it was lifted right from a book. I mean, you get to turn the page of the book while you're in the movie and watch it. But when I kind of lost what I was going to say,
You were
but
saying about just talk about Spike.
I guess what I'm saying is Miracle of Santa Ana. That's what I was talking about. I love World War II films. I love war films. I'm a war film buff.
Same here.
I love
Same
them.
here.
I still have not to this day, been able to get through this movie in one sitting. I've seen this movie. I've seen it in its entirety in bits and pieces, and I cannot get through it.
And why is that?
I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. It's not, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is. I think that if what you're right. I think if you're going to tell the experience of the African American soldier in World War II, I think there were many other ways to have done it in a more filmmaking way. One of the brilliant things about Saving Private Ryan, I felt, was I sat there for 2.5, nearly 3 hours and watched a great war film, only to get to the end and realize, because throughout the whole movie, I'm asking myself, why are they sending the whole platoon for one guy? You're sitting there listening. Why am I paying $8 to see this? Like, what does that? Who would do this? And the end of the film, you see this man, as an old man, walk up to his grave with a whole host of family members behind him, which you immediately see. Oh, that's why. You just made 20 people added to your populace.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That would not have existed were this guy be the last to die. And I think there's just other ways of telling that black war. And I don't agree with Red Tails. I think Red Tails was just the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. It really was. It was stupid.
It was.
It was stupid.
It was.
You know it was.
You know what? It was
almost like a TV movie.
I was about to say, no disrespect to him, but it reminded me of a Robert Townsend film.
Yeah.
You know?
Again, Robert Townsend again.
Five Heartbeats was dope though.
Yeah.
You didn't like Five
Meteor
Heartbeats?
Man.
Well, yeah, Meteor Man.
Right.
Yeah.
It takes right away from it.
Hold on, the soundtrack was off the chain.
Yeah. No, I always thought. I still to this day think Five Heartbeats is great.
No, I
work.
think so too. I think so too.
But yeah, I agree. Meteor Man. Yeah, I agree. Oh yeah, but I think when you get to, I don't know. I just look at Spike. I'm a Spike Lee fan. I like Spike movies. One of the Drop Squad. And I thought, stuff like that. You're not going to win. You're not looking to sell a lot of tickets. You're not looking to make
You're making a point.
You're making a point.
But again,
Bamboozle
was
dope to me.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It spoke to. In fact, it was so
that
dope.
was a Spike film. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I forgot about it. I will say Bamboozle.
Crooklyn was a great film.
Crooklyn
too.
was good. You know what I mean?
You're from where are you from?
I'm from Harlem, but Crooklyn was.
Wait, what was the other? That was Spike Lee. What was the other joint?
Clockers.
Clockers was good.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Crooklyn, I just thought was just too biographical. I just why do I want to see? Why do I care about your family?
Yeah.
Again, it could be Spike Lee stuff going on with me. I don't know.
Bamboozle was dope.
But Bamboozle was actually a brilliant film.
Yeah,
A brilliant film.
To the point where one of the actors, like after the fact, was like, I don't know if I support this movie because I think he's talking about me, about Wayans. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
After it started coming out, he was like, hey, wait a minute.
Right.
But look at this.
But just like Bamboozle with Django, one thing I love about both of those films is that they started conversations.
Exactly.
With Django, case in point, you've been talking about John Brown. And I said, you know what? Let's tell the story of some of these great brothers who actually were the real Django. So I posted on Facebook this picture of this cat, Dangerfield Newby. And Dangerfield Newby was one of the African-American members of the John Brown Party. His story is
never been told.
Is incredible.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you go online and look at the love story between him and his wife, and he's trying to buy her out of slavery, it's absolutely brilliant. So much so
Of this Dangerfield Newby or Django?
Dangerfield Newby.
Okay.
But it was so popular when I posted it on Facebook. I mean, that one post garnered like 75 shares. That one picture, which was amazing because people were like, yo, why don't we know about this guy? So and there he is. That's Dangerfield Newby right there. And I think that's what we have to do with utilize these movies like this to start conversations.
Let me just say this. I think where a Spike Lee, a filmmaker like Spike Lee, gets upset is because I think there's a certain point where he's got to admit to himself, that's the film I should have made. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
The Django becomes a film I should have made, and I think that's one of the criticisms. And I hate to say it this way because it's less a criticism than an observation, but it sounds like a criticism. But that's the observation that I have of our filmmakers and our authors also. We're not writing or making these creatively, visually creative, historically, positive. Because Dangerfield Newbie film would be a positive film,
and it'd be full of all type of intrigue and
exactly. But we're not making those films. We're making films of men dressed up as women, and if I see one more Joyful Noise, I happen to catch on cable. If I see one more
Girlfriend just made me watch
a choir,
like
a church choir wins the I mean, and to be so and to have Queen Latifah, a out and out lesbian, as a choir director for Joy, it's just these things. No, but you gotta understand, they may not resonate on the screen, but they resonate at a subconscious level. They resonate, and when you're making when we're making these kinds of films, you're sitting there saying, "Wow, if you could get a budget and financing, as you say, to make Joyful Noise of the umpteenth black choir does good at the choir contest movie." Why can't you get a budget to do
the reality of it
what
is
Wesley Snipes went to jail for, trying to do a movie about Hannibal?
Funding should be the last thing black people should be worried about for certain types of movies.
Right.
There's way too many. There's a lot of money in the black community, and I ain't talking about because we buy a lot of tennis shoes. I'm talking about there are a lot of black millionaires,
right,
100,000aires, whatever.
Right.
You know what I'm
that
saying?
That can fund a movie and get a good return on the investment. Doug Berry says, with movies, the bottom line is entertainment, and good universal entertainment. You're absolutely right, but good universal entertainment is Medea makes box office history every time it opens on the strength of 99% of people going to see it are black people. So there is a market for a black film or black films to be made for and by black people. Woody Allen, to me, and I think this is, please don't slap me or the Zionists, please don't come down and unplug our internet. But Woody Allen, to me, is a subpar filmmaker. He makes movies for Upper West Side Jews, but he is famous. He's one of the great movie makers of all time. Martin Scorsese makes movies about the same people he grew up with, Italians. They're all the same. But yet these are great filmmakers. And so to say that, Goodfellas or one of these types of movies is a good film, but then all we keep churning out is these, I heard Tyler Perry make this comment about, I've seen white Medeas, I've seen Italian Medeas, I've seen Jewish Medeas. And I'm like, okay, well then hire them and put them in a film. Why do you have to dress up like it? It's not the Medea character, it's you as a black man dressed up as a black woman acting these roles, playing these parts.
I think
and now I'm seeing is a bunch of these black women now getting famous being essentially younger Medeas.
I think
Nene is a younger Medea, angry, smart ass, sassy.
I'll shoot this.
Right. Omarosa's a young Medea.
I think what it comes down to, it comes to the consumer, and we've got to expand. What happens is black people get in this box of what is black. We only want to see certain things that's black, and black being urban. You know what I mean?
Jeezy says Red Hook Summer was genius.
Yeah, I didn't see it, so the trailer looked kind of suspect.
VZ,
but I got but I think what happens is it's just like I'm listening. I'm looking to what's the Ballantyne guy, Warren Ballantyne.
Yeah.
And they're on there talking about the housewife shows about the preacher's
right,
wives.
right, yeah.
And he's going on this. Oh, it's a conspiracy that these shows are on. I'm like, no, there's no conspiracy. They put these shows on because people watch them.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And advertisers are willing to pay for a slot on there because people tune in. You can sit there and say anything you want about the Atlanta Housewives or the hip hop wives, all of that. Shawty Low. We tune in to watch it. So there is no conspiracy. People only want to make money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So when we're talking about those things, we've got to increase the taste of the consumer.
But you know what, Tommy? If I can, if I can chime in too, Tommy, I remember Spike Lee being interviewed in the '90s when he directed Michael Jackson's video "They Don't Really Care About Us" down in Brazil, and he got Oludum, the big drum company, all that, and he was asked when he did the big press thing, and I thought it was brilliant. This journalist asked him this. He said the journalist asked, do you think about actually doing a movie on the life of Zumbi? And Spike was like, who is Zumbi? And Zumbi was a freedom fighter in Brazil. There actually is a movie called Quilombo that I tell everybody to go check out. Quilombo.
Spell it again,
Quilombo. Quilombo. And it's actually about, it's almost like Django. Quilombo. And Quilombo, Zumbi he created these things called Quilombos. Quilombos were like these communities in Brazil. That were in like the middle of nowhere, and the slaves in the 16th century got away from them and built these whole things. So this guy asked Spike Lee, would you consider remaking that film? And Spike says, well, only if Americans want to see something like that. I don't know if they even want to see something like that. So now with Django out right now, and people are seeing that it's making $200 million, hopefully Spike and some other black directors now would be greenlit some of these stories.
I'm ready for the day when there's a black Lord of the Rings. You know what I'm saying?
We all are.
Yeah, like I'm not even that big of a sci-fi fan, but just the fact that we get outside of the box.
Right.
You know
Antoine Fuqua is who I love as a director because he doesn't see himself. I heard him in an interview on one of these shows, and he said, "I don't see myself as a as a filmmaker who has to make black films because I'm black." And I love that because Antoine Fuqua has made some just regular movies. You would even the one with the Jekyll and Hyde movie that had a lot of Masonic references in it with Johnny Depp. I think it was Johnny Depp. Was it Johnny Depp?
Yeah. That was that was Jekyll. Jekyll.
Hey,
and
Roy in the
Hyde.
chat room says, we blacks, some are embarrassed by our past, so they don't want to go too deep below the surface.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's what we're talking about, the cage. Thanks, Roy. Roy been making on points for us all day.
Yeah.
We still back to the cage. You know, the cage being open and nobody wants to run out. But Antoine Fuqua, I think that's what you're talking about. It's like, I'm going to go see The Hobbit. When will there be a movie like that where you just make the film?
Yeah.
God bless you.
Thank you.
From Hell. That's right. From Hell.
Excuse me.
From Hell, yes.
From Hell.
That
Wasn't Fuqua. That was the brothers.
Not
Hudlin. The other brothers.
The Hughes brothers.
The Hughes brothers. But Antoine Fuqua made some good films. I mean, he made some regular films that are not black films.
Yeah, I was gonna say Gangster. What was the? But that's kind of a black film, but not really. The Denzel Washington.
American Gangster.
Not Gangster. I'm so sorry. Training Day. Yes.
Training Day.
Yeah,
but Training Day was just a
it was just
cop
a cop film.
That wasn't right. That wasn't a black film.
Yeah.
No,
He really was one of the only black characters in that movie.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Besides the Mexicans were the bad guys. You having a baby? Tell people where they can find you on the radio.
They can find me 91.9.
Putney Swope. Thank you very sleek. Thank you so much, VZ. Putney Swope is the name of the movie. VZ, my man.
Putney Swope, yes.
Putney Swope. Thank you,
Was that
VZ.
the one about the
advertising?
The
agency.
advertising. Yes.
That's it. Two of my favorite movies: Spook Who Spat by the Door and Putney Swope.
I never
VZ, you win the Listener of the Day award. I appreciate that very much.
Great
Go ahead.
That'll get you a cup of coffee.
Yeah, that'll get you. Maybe not even with milk. I'm just kidding. Thank you very much, VZ. That's what I like about our audience. That's cool. Go ahead, Jamal. What are you doing?
No, I was just saying, man, I'm on every day, Monday through Friday. I got to get ready to go in there right now. You can check me out, WCOK.com. 2 to 6 p.m. I play the best in soulful music, music that people aren't going to hear. And really, it's about, it's so interesting with having this conversation because what I try to do with my radio show is present music in a way that normally you wouldn't have African Americans hearing this music or being presented by an African American.
Right.
Because you look at it, they normally think, are you from London? Are you from Japan? I'm like, no, I'm born and raised in College Park, Georgia. But just because I'm from College Park don't mean I am College Park. I mean, I am, but I have
my world is big.
Yeah.
And so that's what I always try to remind folks.
Which is one of the points in Django.
Exactly.
You're one of 10,000 Negroes.
Swana, this is why I love it. Swana says, Tears of the Sun, which was a great film, was directed by Antoine Fuqua and Shooter. Shooter I thought was okay, but Tears of the Sun, you ever saw that movie with Bruce Willis? They're saving an African village.
Right.
Navy SEALs saving that. That's a great movie. But anyway, go ahead, Jamal. Sorry.
No, but
thank you, Swana.
I got to get back to my pregnant girlfriend, but I just wanted to thank y'all for offering me this opportunity. And I have to say that you guys. What did y'all just say about Django? What was the reference about 10,000? What was that?
1 in 10,000 niggas.
That's what y'all are. That's what y'all are. I have to say that when I listen to you guys and when I hear your viewpoints, It's so refreshing. It's something that we need, and I really hope that this show blows up.
Well, we appreciate
on a
Definitely.
huge
And speaking
level.
of blowing up, Jamal is syndicated also.
Yeah, syndicated. I'm in
Okay.
7 markets now.
And
DC, we're up in DC.
Yeah, and that's a good thing, ladies and gentlemen, because if you tune in to Jamal's show when you can, because you're not going to hear stuff. It's like going to MJQ. You ain't going to hear a song that's been played on the radio, and you're going to hear songs. You're going to hear histories of songs, like the thing with Howard Zinn here. I never knew he worked at Spelman, but you're going to hear little anecdotes like that about the music and
Well, MJQ, I did hear that song, "Gold All in My Watch."
Let me tell you why.
You heard Trinidad?
Yeah, let me tell you why. Whoever played it, I've been hearing this, and Drez the Beatnik, one of the hosts at MJQ, can probably talk about this if he can. But I'm told that the owner, because there's an audience that goes to MJQ, it's like CLK, and it's like our show to a large degree. There's an audience for it, and the audience for it is this. But then there's a larger audience that if you did why, you can get to them. So we started cooning and talking about gossip on this show every day. We might get a wider audience. If Jamal started playing the hit music of the day, he might get a wider audience. However, what will happen then, and this is what happened when you heard Gold in My Watch or whatever, is that the core people who love you for what you do, be like, yo, what the hell are you doing? You know what I'm saying? And they leave.
You cut your right foot off of your
With
left.
that being said,
That's what Black Radio's doing right now.
Right, exactly.
Well, MJQ is the only place I've ever heard a DJ get booed for playing a really horrible commercial record. And that's why I love that audience.
Right. But the point is, when you heard that song, it was not the DJ.
It wasn't on a
who-
Friday though. I will say that it wasn't on a Friday.
Oh, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it wasn't on a Friday. I think it was like
You had me talk like that for it. It wasn't.
it wasn't on a Friday.
Ladies and gentlemen, my
But,
friend
you
Tommy
know,
Bottoms.
But still though, it's still MJQ. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Like,
if it's not a Friday, it's not the same thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, 2 to 6, Monday through Friday. Tune into the show. I think you'll be musically enlightened.
Yes.
You will be.
It's like when you listen to this show and you're enlightened with so many different
We appreciate you,
political
Jamal.
perspectives, man.
And when you go on the show today, tell people you were on the show.
You know what? I will. I'm definitely going to do that.
TheUglyTruthRadio.com.
No, I am.
FM Digital Live.
I am.
.com.
I promise you guys.
Not .net.
I promise.
Back, ladies and gentlemen, this is The Ugly Truth with Tommy Bottom and Shelley Winter.